Hello, creative people. It's Casey. Welcome back to another art journal spread in my Pocky journal. I've got my pages gessoed, and here's my color palette for today. This color palette kind of reminded me of peacocks, and I have this clipping here from a catalog. This is actually a shower curtain, and I just really liked the look of it, and I kind of want to put that into a spread. So this spread I actually planned in advance, which I don't always do, actually I don't do very often, but I really wanted to use these colors and these peacocks. And I'm going to start with these dark colors, and I'm going to kind of make a sunset with some hills, which sounds really weird in the context of peacocks, but stick with me here, you'll see where I'm going with it. So I'm starting with the dark grays, and I have some I'm not sure if that's Payne's Gray or if it's black. I can't remember what I used, but I'm mixing it with some gray. It's black. Yes, it is black. I only did this like 2 hours ago and I can't remember what I did. So I'm starting with the hill shapes. I don't have a whole lot in mind with the shapes, I'm just making whatever I feel like. Now here I was going to do the black underneath the dark gray, but I changed my mind because I thought it was going to be too much black and too dark. So I'm going back over the dark gray with some light gray at the top and dividing it into 3 colors rather than 2. Now I'm adding more dark gray in before I get to the black. I really didn't want it to be too heavy on the bottom. Sometimes darks can really get overpowering. I like the way this turned out with the 3 different colors. I think that was a good choice. They're technically not colors, they're values, but you know what I mean. I'm making that top part just a little bit lighter. That's where my sunset is going to be, or sunrise. It doesn't really matter which. In any case, the light's going to be hitting the top part more than the others, so that's the one that needs to be the lightest. So now I've got my hills or mountains or whatever done. Now the sky part, I didn't want to leave just white, but I don't want it to really be a specific color because I'm going to be adding a lot of feathers over the top. So I just took a gelato in a light blue, and I'll take my baby wipe, and you'll see a lot of that comes off, but it does leave enough blue so that the page isn't just pure white. Now I've got my Posca marker, and I'm doing my sun shape. And then I'm going to draw feathers coming out of the sun. Now I'm just basically using the general shape of the feathers from the not photo, but drawing, whatever it is, the shower curtain picture. I'm not putting too much thought into it, I'm just making these kind of feathery like shapes. I'm going to add some darker teal in there. I would love to be able to do this with all markers, but acrylic markers unfortunately don't have a huge range of color values, so I had to mix paint and use my brush. I ended up going over my lines that I already drew quite a bit, but that doesn't matter, I'll go in and fix them later. They were basically just guidelines anyway for the shapes that I wanted. I've really been inspired by that peacock shower curtain. I've used elements of that actually in quite a number of spreads. Mostly so far I've used the flowers, which were white flowers that had like an ink outline. I've used that several times. And I knew I wanted to use the peacock feathers, but I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do with them. But I happened across a painting someone had done of rolling hills. Sorry, that's my phone. Ugh. No, I did not order anything. I think you're total spam. My apologies for that. What was I saying? Peacock feathers. Okay, so I came across a painting of somebody who had done some rolling hills, and the colors were really neat and the values were really neat. And I thought, what if I did a sunset with that? And then I thought, let's get wild and crazy and put the peacock feathers in as rays of the sun. So that's how this concept came about. I will be totally honest here, full disclosure, when I started this, I was not sure at all how it was going to turn out, whether I would like it. Even at this stage, I was thinking, this could be really ugly. But there are a lot of times when you do artwork and you have the ugly stage. I mean, it literally is called the ugly stage of doing artwork, where the concept is there, but the details aren't in, and everything is just kind of under layers, and it looks terrible, and you're thinking, oh boy, is this gonna work out? You just keep adding over the top of it, and eventually it does work out. A lot harder to do with watercolor than acrylic paint. Watercolor takes more planning. I don't work in watercolor a whole lot just because with these pages, I have to gesso them, and watercolor on gesso is not real effective. Watercolor needs to soak into the paper in order to really get that kind of watercolory effect. I do have a journal that was made with watercolor paper specifically. That was the first art journal I ever did. I believe my next art journal has some watercolor pages in it, but I do plan on adding more actual artist paper into my art journals from now on. Just because it's nice to be able to do watercolors sometimes. Now I'm getting into more of a light green. I'm not really sticking completely with the color palette. I used it as a starting point, and like I said, I really got into the whole idea of doing peacocks. So I'm basically using peacock colors, or what I want to have as peacock colors, and not sticking specifically or strictly with the color palette. Now here I'm just outlining the middle part that I already did. I didn't like the dark blue quite as much, just because there's so much dark at the bottom, and I wanted to have something over top of some of these feathers. And I thought if I do something a little darker in the foreground, it's going to be overpowered by all of this dark blue in the back. So I'm taking this lighter green color and taking some of that dark blue out. Oh, it is one of those days. I don't know if you heard that, but the automatic cat feeder just went off. And it's one of those where you can record a message so you can hear me in the background saying, "Time for Din Din, Lotus." First my phone and now the cat feeder. Don't be surprised if the robot vacuum starts going too. Some days are just like that. And unfortunately, I don't have any more time this week to record audio, so it's now or never. Okay, so now I'm doing the eye parts of the feathers. I used my ink pen and did the outlines and kind of the stems. And now I'm taking my acrylic markers and filling those in. Now these acrylic markers are just, I don't even know if they have a brand. I just got them off of Amazon and they come from China. It just says acrylic paint marker on them, but I love these markers. I really like how they have a very fine tip. The Posca markers, I have a hard time sometimes with the Posca. They don't cover as well as I want them to sometimes, and the nibs kind of get worn down and start coming apart. So I don't know. I do like these generic ones better. Now I just went over the blue with a glitter pen, and this green is also a glitter pen. Just adding a little bit of sparkle in here. And this is a yellow green, which is different from the other blue greens that I have, but it adds some highlights and some brightness. Now this is my shower curtain. I'm deciding to cut out one of these peacocks and glue it rather than try to draw, just because I've already spent quite a bit of time on this spread. And I did change my mind after I cut off the bottom of the tail. I changed my mind and wanted to have the peacock up higher, which isn't that big a deal. You just glue it back together again. I like seeing more of the tail on the bottom, and right there I hit my tripod, so sorry. Now this is a Stabilo pencil, and I'm just adding some highlights around the edge. I thought the peacock blended in a little too much with the background, and I wanted to set it apart. The Stabilo pencil worked well on the bottom where it's dark, but not quite well enough around the body, so I tried a jelly roll, and the jelly roll pen didn't really work very well either, so I'm using my acrylic paint marker, and that really did the trick. So now you can see the top of the peacock much better. Here I'm deciding what I want to do for my sentiment. I decided to go with a white background. And I know the camera just moved again. That time it was not me, it was the robot vacuum. You get to see the bloopers in real time, folks. Handy dandy glue. And honestly, I can't remember what the sentiment says, and I can't really read it. I don't have my reading glasses on. So let's see. Okay, here it is. An exercise in letting go of fear. I chose that because this was really kind of an unknown for me. Like I said, I don't really plan out my spreads very much, and this one was planned. It had a lot of the same kind of colors in it. I really did not have any idea how this was going to turn out or whether it was going to turn out, so it was a little bit stressful. But honestly, I really like how it ended up, and I thought the sentiment just kind of captured it perfectly. So there it is. I hope you enjoyed it and learned something and get inspired. Thanks for joining me. I'll see you next time.